I've given the Minnesota ICE shooting a lot of thinking. Here's some things I want to say about it. From the perspective of the ICE officers, I'm sure that the guy who did the shooting, I believe, had been an ICE officer since 2015. So he's been around a long time. I'm sure these guys have spent many hours talking about what their power and what their jurisdiction is. You know, when do we have the right to, detain even for 5 minutes an American citizen who's impeding their ability to go ahead and arrest somebody, or they're on their way to do something and some American citizen, tries to stop them from doing it. What power do they have to prevent that American citizen from doing something? I'm sure they've talked about this a lot. And whether we know it or not, ICE officers are probably always talking to themselves about what their authority and what their power is and what they're able to do. And so in this particular instance, what I think happened is the two women, the one that was killed and the other one, they were deliberately antagonizing ICE I think they were probably using their car to block them from being able to drive down the street. That's what it looked like to me. And so, these guys had whipped themselves up into a little bit of a frenzy, thinking, oh, we're being impeded from doing our job, so we can do something about it. So open up the door, get out of the car. They certainly have the right to tell people to get out of a car, no matter who they are, I suppose. On the other hand, the women have a right to have their car in the street, and they have a right to, as American citizens, to watch things and to antagonize police and whatever they want to do. You know what I mean? It's a free country. And so I think that the moment of the shooting happened, the real question is, was that ICE officer in fear for his life, or was that ICE officer whipped up in a frenzy thinking like, oh boy, I hope she revs the engine, because if she revs the engine, I can act like I'm in fear for my life and I can shoot her 3 times. And that's what I think it was. I mean, I can't know. That would be obviously better for a jury to make that decision. And I sure hope it goes that way, because something like that's pretty damn serious. U.S. citizens have the right to do what they want, right? It's a free country. So if you want to, sit there and hold a cell phone camera when a nice police officer comes, you have the right to do that. I could see how, if I was a police officer or a nice officer, I'd be kind of upset that you're sitting there holding that camera at me. If there was some way I could give you kids, I might want to do that. You know what I'm saying? If I could get away with it legally. But he shot her 3 times. And the car was clearly turning away from him. There's no way that car was going to hit him. I mean, was he in fear for his life? Maybe. I doubt it highly. I think that ICE officer had, put himself in a situation where he had, built this framework up in his mind that he had, that he was allowed to do something like that if all he had to do was be able to reasonably argue. So if I can reasonably argue that I'm in fear for my life in a situation, I can shoot somebody, and he's already mad at these two because they don't respect what he's doing for a living. He's already mad at these two. And so, there it is. So the entire thing comes down to the responsibility, I would say, of Donald Trump. The terrible leadership that has been offered to us by him as a human being. See, I don't think we have an immigration problem. And I knew Kamala Harris was going to lose the last election the moment she said that to the Fox News reporter when they were having her interview. She says, we've long had a broken immigration system. No, we haven't. We've had the immigration system that we've had. When you have a nation of 340 million people, having 20 million people in our country who are considered to be illegal because they overstayed visas, because they jumped the border, all these other things that could have happened that make something illegal. And you sit there and say, well, there's gang members and there's serial killers amongst them. And it's like, how many gang members and serial killers from America are living in Mexico or living, in other places? I mean, every country's law enforcement officers looking for those kinds of guys. It's just propaganda. It's just make believe. Can America have a broken immigration system? Yes. Sure. What if half of the people who are living here are not citizens? What if for every one citizen there's 3 illegals? I don't know where that happens. But if you have one person in your country who's here illegal, is that a broken immigration system? No. So where's the ground where you say that you have it? And so I would have strongly argued that the 150 billion that Trump put towards amped up immigration enforcement at the beginning of this tenure was a direct, what shouldn't have done, because that resource is way better used somewhere else. But he did it, and he did it because he was able to lie to the American people about using propaganda, telling us that everything's all wrong with immigration, and people bought into that and believed that. It scratched that desire for a fight kind of itch that we have inside of us. And then once he got elected, he had to follow through on these terrible principles. So it was like we've been lied to from the beginning here. And I knew that about him because when he re-entered the public life in 2015, talking about Obama's birth certificate, I knew right there that we were dealing with a sinister man. And it continues. It's really hard to see through the bullshit that he's created, but he's the one who got these ICE guys all whipped up in a frenzy, wanting to show themselves how tough they are, want to, convince them of the rightness of what they're doing. And at the same time, you got some couple lefty liberal girls who are trying to, watch them, antagonize them, and they should be, because these are human beings that you're not being fair to. You put one guy in jail without any due process. I'm thinking about that one kid up there in Massachusetts who was on the honor roll in his high school. He was a dreamer. He had never broken a single American law, not even an immigration law, because he was like 7 years old when he came to America. So he was a dreamer, right? How could he violate any law? And suddenly you put him in prison for an entire week. And it took him a whole week to finally see a judge, and people had to rise up and protest against it, for obvious reasons. The people in Minnesota, the people in Minnesota are upset about what ICE is doing. They should just get the fuck out of Minnesota. That's what my opinion is. So what the fuck are they doing there in the first place? People just need to see through the propaganda. It's all it is. It's straight out of the Nazi playbook.